It's a great honor to be here because, as simply and boldly, my life has been based on the principle of biodynamics. And I was very fortunate to be born in the heart of Burgundy, in a tiny village that many of you know for the fame of its wine named Boisset. And this village is called Boisset, and obviously the wine is the Clos Boisset. And I was born in that same village that I still live in today. And in that village, I witnessed very early on, thanks to my grandparents and parents, a huge deviation into the world of nature. And what I mean by deviation is an enormous digression from history. And I choose to tell you this story because I think it's a very important one as far as all of us realizing why we're here today, and the movement, in many ways, we need to start in order to be true with ourselves, true with nature, respectful of nature, and be in synergy with the biorhythm of nature. My grandparents were school teachers, so very early on, as many of you know, you walk the land, you enjoy your best friend, which is often nature, and your grandparents tell you, why are the bees here? Why are the birds here? And you dig a hole as you do gardening with them, and they show you the organic and beautiful life that is below us. And this was for me a huge awakening because as early as 4, 5, 6 years old, I had the pleasure to do composting with them, to do the garden, whether it's flowers or vegetables, and really dive into the world of nature. And my grandparents really early on, very fortunately, and I hope many of you lived those enlightenment and awakening, really engaged me into the true sense of why things happen where they do happen. And as kids, you love to ask a lot of questions. I have two lovely twin ladies who are 6 years old. A lot of the questions they ask I cannot answer, but it's fascinating to see the enlightenment that you have as a child as far as trying to understand the world below us, the world around us, and the world above us. And that was really fascinating because very early on I could understand, even in Burgundy, in the most expensive vineyard on the planet, where lately a plot of Grand Cru, 1 acre, could fetch $12 million. As early as 40 years ago, as we lived an enormous transition in terms of synthetic products, in terms of heavy equipment, we did not realize the impact on a negative way we were having on our neighbors. And, you know, the planet at large. In that small village I was born in, 700 meters away from the famous Clos Boisset built by the monks, by the way, planted by the monks thanks to observation. Thanks to observation. You know, you have two kinds of monks, and I'm not the guy who went to Catholic religion, but quite fascinating, those monks, if you know the history, documented after many decades of observing the famous land of Keynote and Chardonnay, and decided after observing the soil and the life on that soil what to plant and when and where. As a matter of fact, in 1999, when we decided to create Domaine de la Bougerie and bring all our estates in one with the vision of Biodynamic, I went to the library of Dijon, which is really fantastic, and we opened all the history books of the monks and their observations. And you could see the life, which was absolutely incredible, all around that slope, which was historically not as planted as it is today. And they observed the life under and the life above, and all the birds and all the overall life, which was obviously living within that terroir. And then they decided, obviously, to plant when they planted, which is magic. And this is something that is so important in the world of sustainability, organic, and biodynamic, is to observe, and from that observation, obviously draw the right conclusion. Just to tell you that story, because when I was 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, which was almost 40 years ago, I remember Burgundy at the time full of the new generations of whatever negative impact would happen in the vineyards. You know, whether it's sulfate, whether it's all the products that we don't want would eventually get in our glass. I remember people cleaning on the main plaza of the tractors and seeing all those blue, negative, of course, synthetic products that end up eventually in the soil, which we would eventually drink. So I realized very early on it was essential to borrow the big sayings of the Native Americans and say, let's take off our shoes and caress the skin of Mother Nature. And that's a very powerful statement, because when you think about it, even in Burgundy, what we realized very quickly, and we did that as early as 1995, 1996, 1997, we partnered very closely with the University of Dijon and a few others, and realized very fast that the soil had been hugely compacted, that we were using heavy equipment and we were killing basically the life and the root mechanism of the plant. We were realizing that through all the things we were spraying, we were basically killing the life around us that really creates that wonderful rhythm of Mother Nature. So you know what we did? We basically, all of us as a region, decided to create a very famous organization today called the Boisset, like gesture. So the extension of the mankind movement. And the Boisset is responsible today for creating a series of composts that are different from a 30-mile radius. So we pushed it as far as really evolving ourselves into the terroir itself and the true definition of what we mean by terroir, which is not just the soil, the plant, and the climate, but as well the passion, the people, and the constitution of what comes around it. And the results have been over the last 25 to 30 years absolutely dramatic. As Elizabeth pointed out, some of the most famous estates in the world today, and many of you who are producing great wines, have made that shift. But the most historical have continued to follow the rhythm of nature. Whether it's Romanée-Conti, whether it's Leroy, whether it's us with Domaine de la Rocherette, and many others, we follow that philosophy. And I think Elizabeth organizing this gathering is the first, and one of the first in the world, and all of you being part of it is so critical, because when you think about it, even in Burgundy, we have 6% of the total surface of Burgundy. And I choose Burgundy because it's maybe the most neutral, except for me, for all of you. Only 6% is organic. Less than 5% today is certified Biodynamic. So I really believe, as Elizabeth said, we've got to organize a movement and a very powerful one. This is really the beginning, I hope, of all of us joining hands to really push the effort of really being who we want to be and being true to ourselves. You know, you have a very famous man in France named Brillat-Savarin. You probably know him as well for the triple cream cheese. You know, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. And I think it's the same whatever you produce, whether it's vegetables, whether it's, you know, orchards, or whether it's dry fruits, or obviously grapes. We all need to realize, if we want to optimize quality, and if we want to be true to ourselves, that we have an enormous responsibility in front of us. And I realized that early on when I decided that we ought to be organic and biodynamic. Because the responsibility we have is vis-à-vis the past, the present, and even more importantly, the future. When you inherit a vineyard, it has to be an inheritance not only from parents, or the management team, or the people who came before you for many centuries, but it's a responsibility, more importantly, towards your children and grandchildren. And I think all of us need to really realize that quality as well comes from the invisible part of Mother Nature. What is the invisible part of Mother Nature? It's actually the soil. The feeding mechanism of the plant is the most essential part of it. So in 1998, we did all the studies on the different plots, from Côte de Nuit, Côte de Vaud, Grand Cru, Premier Cru vineyards. And you know what we realized? The soil was as hard as this one. So we dig holes and witness the fact that there was no life anymore in that soil. And we basically use those heavy equipments and let happen the death under us. You know, the minerality and the constitution of the soil, with its magnesium, potassium, and all the components of it, gives the essence of a wine. A terroir wine, by definition, comes from underneath. I always say to people, the most important part of a vineyard is actually not what you see, it's the unseen. And realizing that even below us, there are current and magnetic current and telluric energy. And that energy, coupled with great farming, creates that transcendental moment that crafts the most amazing wine or the most amazing product coming from Mother Nature. So you know what we did? We said, how are we going to give back life to this soil? And it was a huge decision, and many of you are going to think we totally insane. We went back to horse traction, horse plowing. And we said, instead of having a mechanical, tractor at 1,000 kilos or 2,000 kilos, let's go on an animal at 300 kilos and build great muscles and guide that horse through the vineyards. In a matter of 10 years, we've recreated an amazing life in the soil. We've recreated a beautiful life around the vineyards. And more importantly, we've created world-class wine. And Elizabeth touched on it as well. What is the difference often between 95 and 98? It's funny, we had a whole series of ranking at 98 points a few weeks ago. And many consumers in the tasting asked me, Jean-Charles, what's the difference between 98 and 94? And I often say, je ne sais quoi. Because wine is such that subjective element that triggers our senses, and obviously encourage all our vibes within our body, and it's subjective. So I said this is the farming techniques we use and the techniques we use in the vineyard. And I think that's very important that we all realize that. Elizabeth mentioned another statistics which is crazy. Out of the 1,000 wineries in the state of California, there's only a few hundred, if that, organically driven or biodynamically certified. This is crazy when you think that in Burgundy, with the climate we have, we farm over 250 acres, fully biodynamic. We do the same in the Beaujolais, the same in the Rhône, the same in the south of France. How could we not, all of us, in Sonoma or Napa or the Central Coast, not move into organic farming? This is exactly what we did when we acquired the Lodge Vineyards in the Russian River. Many people thought we were crazy. The ranking of that estate was extremely high. The first thing we did in 2003, we pulled out all the vineyards. People said, are you crazy? Those wines are getting great grades. We let it fallow for 2 years so that the soil could obviously regenerate itself and live again. And then we planted it according to organic and biodynamic techniques. And I cannot tell you how many times we did speeches or explanation on that topic, because the word biodynamic was very strange to many people. People could understand organic, but this is really the basic. When I hear the word sustainable, for me it means nothing. It's like understanding a foreign language. It means nothing. We all need to be, for the minimum, organic and eliminate all the negative aspect of what we cannot analyze in wine. Because beyond everything else, as we all know, if you go to the lab and analyze a glass of wine, there's only a few molecules we can explain. Most of them we cannot. So for pure sake of safety and health, we've got to be true to ourselves as well. But how could we not, when we inherit an amazing planet like we have, not live within the rhythm and the biorhythm of Mother Nature? And recently we celebrated Chinese New Year's. We celebrated, of course, Nowruz, which is Persian New Year as well. One is in February, the other one is in March. One celebrates spring, and one celebrates the true New Year following the lunar calendar. I've been personally following the lunar calendar literally since the age of 5. Only plant medicine and nothing else but nature. And I can tell you, if we were to go back to this calendar and the true almanac, which is literally the lunar calendar, we would all be in better shapes. But more importantly, we would be in better shapes as well, making great wines. Not only at the Loge, but at Raymond, where we converted over 300 acres in Napa Valley as the leading estate into biodynamic. We have a better environment, we have less allergistic phenomena, we have greater wines, greater winemaking, and greater quality. And I know you're all convinced here, but I think it's so important to move from the moment of discussion to the moment of action. It's always so easy to discuss things in a salon. You know, the French are very good for that. You know, we discuss, but we don't necessarily act. I think acting on the word of biodynamic is very simple. And yes, it is eventually a little more costly at first, but over time it regulates itself because of the quality you obtain, which is way superior than anything else. And I really engage you to come and see us and demonstrate with us what we do. We created recently, and Elizabeth, you were kindly referring to it, what we call the Theater of Nature. No later than last night, Joe Papendick, who is here with us, who leads all our gardening, was with me leading some of the most influential people in Napa Valley who bought a big auction lot. And all those people own vineyards, and they could not believe the 60 signs we've put in the Theater of Nature and the simplicity of living in synergy with Mother Nature. And it's funny because at the end of the dinner, although we had a lot of wine, so I hope the wine did not just have that influence, everybody said, I cannot believe at this stage we have not converted into organic or biodynamic farming. And I think it's very reassuring for all of us to be an educator at the same time. Demeter, through the leadership of Elizabeth, is an amazing resource to guide you and to guide us. She's been guiding us for over 17 years now, since we joined, obviously, the organization. But I think it's so very important that we all have this responsibility. Because in true form, I think biodynamic is not even enough. What do I mean by this? I touch on the topic of the invisible part of Mother Nature. Jeff Cox and I, who is with us as well today, who's an amazing author of over 21 books on the topic of organic, was right at the beginning of the big movement in the United States in the 70s. I've decided to write a book which will be published next year on the invisible part of this world, which I think is so important. What I mean by the invisible part, and Jeff Dawson as well is here today, who's amazing, onto the topic of understanding magnetic energy, telluric energy, and cosmic energy. Because the world of biodynamic is one step into a greater world. And I want to open your mind today on this topic. And why this topic is so important. I was born almost with a pendulum, and with a rods, and with grandparents who were resistant in the war, who found their children and friends through pendulum energy. As you all know, the Egyptian, from the pyramids to the Greek construction, to the Greeks, from the Acropolis to everything which was done in the Peloponnese, to Rome, all those cities were built according to a great correlation between telluric and cosmic energy. And it's very important to do that. And I want to share a funny story with you, which I think is one of the most compelling stories that I've ever lived. So I've seen, besides and beyond biodynamic farming, the energy of biodynamics. So in the Clos Vougeot, in that same vineyard, we have an incredible wine, which is a monopole named the Clos Vougeot Blanc, which you can find in all the best levels around the world. It's only 10,000 bottles being produced. One of the finest Chardonnay, the diamond among the rubies. We buy this vineyard in 1997, and there's 8 rows as you go up to the famous Clos Vougeot, which are, according to everyone, uncurable. I mean, can you believe the value of those rows? So we said to ourselves, we've got to find a solution. We try a variety of things with organics, don't succeed. Suddenly, the father of a very good friend of mine, Dr. Prat, writes to me a very long letter. And I knew Dr. Prat for many years of his work on invisible architecture, on basically showing French people and in Europe the great alignment of Notre Dame, Chartres, Amiens, following the golden rule and the same principles of building. He tells me, Jean-Charles, besides biodynamic, I have another way to cure this thing. You don't pay me anything unless we're successful. And I don't want any money because I love this wine, so I just want to be paid in wine. He was a smart man. And I knew what he was going to do because I had seen it with my grandparents and so many other people that I had encountered throughout my childhood who were into the world of biodynamic and geobiology, which I believe are very linked one and the other. So our vineyard manager, very strong in biodynamic farming, says, Jean-Charles, I'm very skeptical about this. I think this is crazy, but if you really want me to do it, I will do it. So listen to this. The vineyard is a big triangle, so imagine it. At the end of the triangle is the Clos Vougeot, built by the monks from the 12th to the 14th century. I know all of you know this amazing monument of history. I have our friend Dr. Prat using the sundial. The vineyard faced east-west. You know, east, Mont Blanc, west, obviously, Brittany, the Dolomites, and the Atlantic Ocean. And he says to my friend Bernard, who is a 6th Street vineyard manager of the estate, believing in organic, believing in biodynamic, being skeptical about this philosophy, go at the epicenter of the triangle and spread your arms. So our friend was doing acupuncture to the earth. He had long needles, and he was going all around as a radius, and trying to find a nut in the land. Suddenly, you know, after 10 of those, Bernard is probably thinking, Jean-Charles, you're really losing my time. Suddenly, he says to him, spread your arms. Put the long needle in the soil, and Bernard is stuck. Cannot move his arm down. So he takes the needle, walks, 300 or 400 meters up, and bring the arm down. Quite amazing. He did that 4 times. Pascal, our winemaker, and I were drinking one obviously at the estate, having a great time. And Bernard comes back panicking, saying, this is crazy, I've lived the experience of my life. I thought the ultimate was biodynamic, but I went beyond understanding the rhythm of the telluric energy to the cosmic energy. And by tying the two, we basically untied the knots in the earth, and a few of the things happened. 3 years later, guess how was that vineyard? In great shape and producing phenomenal wines with beautiful berries, gorgeous juice, making one of the top Chardonnay ever made in the history of Burgundy. Why do I tell you that? Because I think as we explain to people sustainability, which is really the basic, it's not even 101 to me. We move into organic and biodynamic. We've got to think about the alliance and the synergy we are with Mother Nature. We've got to think about gold, copper, and obviously platinum, which is in the soil. We got to think about the cosmic energy. We got to think about the association of the three. We are a tiny part on the planet, as you know. We 0.27 in the moon and 109 times smaller than the sun. So we are a tiny little element. So I really believe we all need to lead in a sense of biodynamic farming and geobiology and go way beyond. And I want to invite all of you, besides our wineries in the US, in Burgundy, and even at Buena Vista Winery. And that's maybe the last story I want to share with you, which is obviously embarked for a long time into biodynamic farming and biodynamic practices. And again, we do the practices in many of our wineries, not only in the vineyards, but as well in the winery. It's very, very important for all of you as winemakers not to stop the element of biodynamic just in the vineyards. You've got to do it as well in the winery. And that means a lot of practices from open top with fermenters to obviously racking the barrels, not when the moon goes up, and when it's at the ultimate point, and resting down. Same thing with bottling as an example, when the moon is at her lowest point. So very important to go way beyond where we started. And the example I want to give you finally is the vortex and dynamizing energy in a site, using the Boisset scale to bring energy, which is a similar scale as Richter, which measures vibration. Boisset measures energy. And I'm choosing this example because this is what we've lived, all of us, in November. Actually, in October. What happened? The whole Northern California was under the flames. We were all obviously very worried about, one winery specifically for us, which is the first California winery in Buena Vista. So Jeff Dawson, years ago, beyond, obviously biodynamic energy, we created a grid with crystals and linked those crystals with intention. We linked them in the courtyard of Buena Vista, a vortex, which goes clockwise and counterclockwise. A vortex, as you know, dynamizes the energy and brings energy to a site. The fires comes in. One crystal, totally aligned to the building, comes out of the soil. Comes out. It was buried at 50 centimeters deep. Deeper than this. Comes out. The fire is stopped at 3 feet from the building. Quite amazing, right? Yes, we had firemen. Yes, we had, obviously, a great help to help stop the fire. But how incredible it is when you link Mother Nature to the ground we live in, to the cosmos above us. So I think we should all, besides all the great things we believe, act, because action is worth more than 10,000 words. And all of us continue to join hands around Elizabeth and create in the United States a true movement and a true demand at the retail level, at the grocery level, and in every venue about organic, biodynamic, and beyond. Because I think we will all truly be better, healthier, and prouder of leaving the planet better than we found it. So thank you so much. And Elizabeth, thank you.